Welcome to Tech Biz Now. In this episode, we will discuss networking for those who find social interactions daunting. We will learn how to build authentic connections, expand professional and personal circles, and advance your career, all while staying true to yourself. We also will discuss practical strategies to overcome social anxiety, tailor your communication style, and confidently handle networking events. And our guest today is Lizzie Phillips. Lizzie connects business owners and professionals through impactful hybrid and in person networking events. With over 200 events per year since 2007, Lizzie adapted to the pandemic by launching nationwide online networking, which she continues alongside face to face events. Through her platform, I Want to Network, she offers members and visitors the chance to build meaningful connections with international businesses and high end brands. Her events, hosted in unique and exclusive London venues, provide standout opportunities for professionals to expand their networks in memorable settings. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Tech Biz Now. And we have a very special guest today. Hi, Lizzie. How are you?
Hello, Anna. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for becoming a guest in my podcast. And today's topic is very, very interesting. I really want to know more about it. But before anything else, Lizzie, can you tell us more about you and your business?
I can, Anna. Well, firstly, thank you very much indeed. So my name's Lizzie Allen Phillips. I run and own a networking organisation called I Want to Network. And we do networking quite differently. So we have online networking and some what we class as N90 groups, which meet once a month for 90 minutes, clues in the name. But we also do quirky networking in London as well. But we like to, when I say quirky, we like to do it in iconic London locations across London or attractions. So think walking over Tower Bridge, London Dungeons, London Transport Museum. Last month we did networking as we went through Kensington Palace, which was amazing.
Nice. Yeah, I missed that, but I like going to your events anyway. They're all quirky.
Yeah, so it's quite useful, which kind of leads into what we were going to be talking about today,
Yes.
actually.
Yes. So our topic today is all about networking and about extroverts and introverts during networking situations. So I guess my first question to start off is, what are extroverts and introverts in a networking setting?
Good question, Anna. So this topic has kind of come up a lot in our N90 groups, actually. And it's in a networking setting. It might work differently in a sort of an employment setting, but in a networking setting, essentially introverts might be slightly introverted in networking with others, whereas extroverts are very much in my view, can be very bubbly and maybe overvoted in terms of wanting to get business.
Well, before anything else, when we talk about networking setting, it is business networking.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
there's a lot of other networking out there.
Yeah, there is. There we go.
Yeah, so I guess for me, there are certain misconceptions about networking and being an introvert and an extrovert. I see myself as an introvert when it comes to networking, but probably other people won't think that way. But what are the most common misconception about introverts first and extroverts?
Okay, so extroverts can potentially come across as quite arrogant, that they're very interested in sales only, i.e. only talking about themselves. Whereas introverts, on the flip side of that, introverts may come across as not necessarily shy, but actually perhaps not interested in others. Not enjoying the session, potentially coming across as shy, but generally I have had visitors come where they are quite nervous, but they may come across as not wanting to be there at the end of the day.
I think everyone wants to be there, but it's just, I think this, because they're scared, it feels that way. So I guess like a lot of like networking anyway, when it comes to business, it's a targeted thing. So you really want to be there in the first place. But when you go in and start talking to people, I guess that's the time people would think, I think I need to go away.
Yeah, I think that's a
Because of the
really
feeling.
yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually, Anna. I think with introverts, the number one thing we'll say is, I know I need to do it,
Yeah.
but the idea of doing it really fills me with dread. And actually, with any form of networking, whatever type of personality that you have, networking is a marketing tool. So even if you were, you wouldn't start an online ad campaign without knowing what you want to get out of it at the end of it. So whatever type of personality that you have, I always actively ask both members and visitors to think about, what would a good successful networking event look like to you? And then that really helps kind of set the scene, and really helps introverts actually work out where they want to start with it, and kind of put some, kind of theoretically put them at ease.
Yeah, having said that, actually, you've given a bit of information about how introverts can mentally prepare before attending a networking event. Can you give a couple more samples? Because I know that there's a lot of introverts out there and they're too afraid to go in to a networking session.
Yeah. Well, look, first of all, I always say that there's lots of different types of networking. There are still networking events out there where you're kind of thrown into a room and it's up to you, but how you kind of do your networking. But conversely, there's loads of other types of networking. And I always say, try a few out, and see what you prefer, but also the type of clients that you are going to be attracting, where they go as well. But for introverts in particular, I would say you probably want something that's a bit more structured. So what I mean by structured, and again, there may be a misconception that structured could be quite rigid, and that's not the case either. What I mean by that is it's not informal networking. So introverts find informal networking particularly difficult. So they don't like the idea of having to create those connections themselves. They'd like to be able to have someone guide them on that way. And one of the advantages of a structured networking session is that people know where they are, they know what to expect. They know what's coming up, and again, going back to that list as to what they want to get from it, then they feel more empowered when they come out of the networking session that they've been able to achieve that. One of the other top tips I would definitely say is contact the networking organizer.
Okay.
There will always be a networking organizer for whatever session it is.
Yeah, if there's
even if
not
they
nobody.
don't run or own it.
Yeah, if they don't do it, then don't want to go there because it's gonna be all over the place.
Yeah, and quite often if I have somebody says, look, I'm a bit worried about doing this, I've not done it before, I always ask people if they're a visitor, have you done this before? And if they're unsure, then again, I might actually introduce them to a couple of people. A good networking organizer will always take into account that, it might not be somebody's first, it might be somebody's first time, or they might be a little bit nervous about coming in.
Yeah.
One of the other top tips is to what we class as icebreakers. So have a couple of icebreakers in your back pocket.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What
Yeah,
sort of
so
icebreakers?
yeah, so a bit of an American term, isn't it, icebreakers? But it might well be that you can, being very British, you can always talk about the weather. Let's
I
face
know.
it.
Oh, like especially now, it's actually autumn, and it's like, oh, okay, we'll
Yeah,
talk about the weather
yeah.
a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Was it cold on your way in? How did you get there? Uh, how long have you been running your business for? How long have you been employed for? What made you want to get, if you're talking to a particular person in an industry, what made you want to go into that industry?
Yeah,
Is
not
another
too
good one.
creepy questions. The questions that are
No.
not not too creepy as well. You have to have that
Yeah, it's true.
fine balance, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you've got to remember whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, everybody is there generally for
Yeah,
the same reason.
yeah,
And no, everybody wants everybody to succeed, because the more that everybody succeeds in that room, the more that the business is going to be passed around the table. And
correct.
that is
That's true.
the end. And as soon as you start thinking, actually, everybody does want me to succeed because it means that they do too, then it relaxes you a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned about the type of environment introverts would be looking for in terms of their networking session. So I guess the best networking environment for an introvert to start off with as they build their when they go into networking, they're not too shy, is a structured one. So can you give me I think like some of our listeners don't know what a structured informal
Yeah,
networking
sure.
is. So a brief sort of like description of what are those, and what sort of they what people would expect on those types of networking environments.
Yeah. So if I talk about a couple examples of structured networking or
Mm-hmm.
semi-structured.
Mm-hmm.
So we run we run one structured session, but we also run a semi-structured
Mm-hmm.
session as well. So and then we also run an informal, so you're able to kind of get a bit of a blend between them all. So a structured session might be a 1 minute business pitch, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and also going around the room to see where the referrals lie, would be on one side in terms of structure. Which some people do. There are benefits of structured networking in the fact that you see ultimately where those connections lie quite quickly, and people are
Mm-hmm.
able to get referrals. But there are downsides where if you're introverted, the idea of doing a 1 minute business pitch might fill you with dread.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the other top tips to do with that, and if you are worried about it, is to do your 60-second pitch before you go. So you don't have to write the whole thing out, but I always say introduce yourself, the business name, and ultimately the area in which you cover. So it might well be, for example, Anna, with your website of things, you can say I service the whole of the UK, but also work with international clients, for example. And then mention 3 things that you are looking for. So if you're a business to consumer, you may want to mention the type of client you're looking for. If you're business to business, you may want to mention the industries that you're looking for. So accountants, graphic designers, and business coaches, for example. Yeah. And then repeat your name and your company name so that people remember you. Now, if you are someone that is finding the structure quite difficult to tackle, you can do semi-structured networking. Now, a great one to try out if you are trying to get over those nerves of doing a 1-minute business pitch is speed networking. So speed networking, not to be confused with speed dating, Anna.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
it does
You
work
don't
on the
want that.
same
Yeah. And
basis.
then yeah.
It does,
Business networking is not a
yeah.
speed dating place to go to.
It does work on the same basis in the fact that you are partnered up with somebody. And then every so often, in ones that we run, we generally swap people every 4 minutes. You do your 1-minute business pitch, the other person does their business pitch, and then you swap partners again, theoretically. The advantage of doing speed networking is that it's very fast and furious, but if you aren't used to doing your 1-minute business pitch, it enables you to get that practice in because you're constantly repeating it. In our sessions, we generally have up to 20, so you are practicing it at least 10 times, if not 18 times. So that's a really good tip to kind of keep going and get repeating in. Another example of semi-structured networking, which kind of then goes into informal networking, is do networking with a business activity, either a business activity or some kind of quirky session, which is kind of where our I Want to Network sessions come in realistically, and the reason why they were born. Yeah, it's because it breaks the ice. You have something to talk about. So we've done, as I said, we do them across different London locations, but a great example is when we went and did Frameless recently, which is an immersive art exhibition. Yeah. So again, you are talking about the art in front of you. You have something to talk about. Again, networking is about building that trust and rapport. So it's about, by having a business activity to do, you're kind of all sharing that experience together. And the whole idea is you're building that trust and rapport. You've shared experience together, and therefore you're more likely to pass referrals and leads to that person. Now, the only downside with something like speed networking is that you're not building that trust and rapport.
Yeah, because it's all very quick.
Yeah. So whilst introverts may find structured networking quite challenging, actually the statistics show that you get more from you actually get more referrals and more business from structured networking because you are building that trust and rapport versus informal, which is literally just as it says, it's informal networking. So you are unlikely to build that rapport enough for you to trust that person that they will do a good enough job for you.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I guess I'm actually just thinking now, right? Like in terms of if we talk about extroverts, how would they make sure that because they're not pressuring the introverts when it comes to conversations during
That's a really good
networking
point,
events?
actually. Yeah. So I would say I'm quite extroverted. And I know those knows me quite well. And even I have to remind myself, actually, I need to ask them, I need to ask the other person to go. Quite often I ask the person that I'm talking to go first. So what you could do is, if you are one of those people that likes to have a chat, there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, there's nothing wrong with either
the
side.
life of the party.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. But be mindful that you may want the other person to potentially go first. And what I mean by go first is if you're doing a 1-minute business pitch or you're trying to talk about business, maybe ask them a couple of questions first before talking about yourself. It's interesting, before we started recording, I was saying that all my groups have slightly different dynamics to it. Now, the London groups, I would say, attract more extroverts, and whereas the online groups attract more introverts. And And there are, again, more reasons for that. If you are introverted, you may prefer or try an online networking session. Yeah. Again, because you might well be in your own space. There's an opportunity to obviously go on mute. And you may be put into smaller groups in terms of breakout rooms. So again, there's that good opportunity. The extroverts, naturally as an extrovert, you may be more social and feel like you need that social interaction with somebody. And the only way of doing that is by being in person, which again, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong with that either. So again, you may think to yourself, actually, it's an in-person networking group or an event that I much prefer because I'm able to get much more from body language from people.
Yeah, speaking of what body language just now, how can so this in terms of like introverts, so how can introverts interact well or like during one-to-one or small group sessions, especially during the large networking sessions? Because normally I would go, like for myself, I would go to a networking event and there's about like 100 200 people in there, so people will be in small groups. So as an introvert, can you give some tips on how to manage your interactions in those small groups? So basically you're in a big group and then suddenly you're in this
In a
small
small
pocket.
one.
Yeah. How can you go in and like introduce yourself? Because at the end, those types as an introvert, it's very difficult to do that.
Yeah, somebody else gave me a really good top tip recently, actually. And she said, quite often, if you hang around the drink station, you'll find other people that are also hanging around
Oh
for the
yeah, I
same
should try
reason.
that.
It's true though, and to perhaps approach the smaller groups rather than a larger one
One or
would be
two
another
people then.
option. Yeah. And again, try not to be too overwhelmed by it. I think there's an element that if you're going to a very large networking session, you feel like you've got to meet everybody, otherwise it's not beneficial. When the reality is that if you met just one really good connection, you'd rather have one extremely good connection that gets you business than 100 not so great ones. So think about the quality of that connection, not the quantity.
Okay. I guess I've got two more questions. So the next one is, what are effective ways, right, for introverts to practice their networking skills in everyday life? Because like you only do like once or twice a month, but you need to practice. Practice makes perfect. So
yeah, it does.
How would you practice it during your everyday life?
This question really made me smile actually when you sent it to me. So maybe because I am one of those people that just ends up talking to anybody. I think particularly in Britain, we are very reserved on not talking to anybody, even if it's on the tube. We don't talk to anyone.
Okay.
Very,
or the queue.
Other people from other countries are like, this is very odd, and when someone starts talking to you, you're like, why are you talking to me? Why? So first of all, a smile always goes a long way. Okay. I always say smile always goes a long way. Yeah. Number two, you could, if you are shy in social groups, networking realistically is social groups, but for business. So ultimately, you might want to look at how you interact with others outside business. Might be a good way of doing it. So it might be a hobby that you take up that is related in a group. It might be chatting to people after you doing a gym class is another,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
another
Okay.
easy one to do. Talking to somebody behind the coffee station, for example,
Ooh. Oh, yeah.
when you buy
Yeah.
a coffee in the
Yeah. The
morning is
baristas.
another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, baristas. Talk the old-fashioned way of doing it in the office. Let's face it, that we have almost got out the practice post-COVID
Yeah.
of chatting to people in the office.
Yeah.
You know, it's unusual. I'm in a co-working space at the moment, and there's a lovely chap in my like my booth area that's from Turkey. And he's so chatty. And again, you're just not used, you're just not used to it. It's just
In
it's getting used
post-COVID.
to, yeah. And it's just kind of getting used to when you're out going to get a coffee or a drink, the old saying of the water cooler corner.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
And just chatting to somebody, if you're in a co-working space, just chatting to somebody and make the point of trying to chat to somebody. The other thing I thought of is for those that have children, you could join the dreaded PTA at school.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
a good way of
Ah,
getting
yeah.
used.
That's right. That's right. Because you meet a lot of
Yeah,
different people,
you
different
meet a lot of
characters.
different
Yeah.
people. You meet a lot of different parents, and again, it's just down to communication, really. So yeah, to get out and chat to people.
Okay. Okay, and my final question is all about the fear of rejection. So, because like when you're in, I've experienced this, and everyone would have experienced it if you have been doing networking for a long time. Is that when you speak to someone, suddenly you feel, I think he's rejecting what I'm saying. That sort of thing. So, how would introverts overcome that? Because sometimes after that experience you feel like, oh my god, I don't want to do this anymore. How would they overcome that fear going forward?
Yeah, so I think first of all, you've got to remember that if you don't have a great networking experience, go and try something else. As I said, it's not one size necessarily fits all for everybody. If you've tried structured networking and it didn't work for you, try informal networking or vice versa. It might well be that you want to try online versus face to face. Don't be dissuaded by one bad experience, I suppose. I think in business, because we are so passionate, it's our business, that we do take it personally when people don't want our product or service.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we see it as a reflection or rejection on us, not actually what we're offering. And I think there's that element of it. And I always believe that what comes around goes around. So what might not be good for them might be good for somebody else. So it's like anything in life. You might be you might not be a good fit for that client, but actually your best client is around the corner.
Yeah.
So and quite often you know yourself, Anna, that you've had to let clients go, and
Yeah.
actually
It's better.
when you reflect upon it 6 months down the line, it's actually that they probably weren't the best client for you anyway.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Lindsay, for today. Lastly, how would our listeners and viewers connect with you? How would they join? I want to know.
Yeah. Thank you very much for asking, Anna. So we run lots of different types of networking. We have our N90 group. So you remember me saying about it being structured. So if you fancy more of a structured networking, then that's quite a good one to do. We're very business focused, but very friendly. If you are wanting more international clients, we are doing something with our international group, which is called QE2, named after Queen Elizabeth II. We name all our groups after iconic people because we're not location specific. If you are looking for London groups, if you are one of those people that loves face-to-face networking, then we do our I Want to Network sessions, as well as our N90 touring and REN groups that meet once a month in London. So the best place to go is to either check me out on LinkedIn, Lizzie Allen Phillips, or indeed go to our website, which is iwanttonetwork.com.
Okay. Thank you, Lizzie. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much, Anna.
So don't forget to share, like, and send everyone this episode. So until next month, see you. Bye.